Hi, everyone, and welcome to Transparent Conversations. My name is Katie Buckingham, and I'm our curator here at Museum of Glass in Tacoma, Washington. Welcome to our final episode of Transparent Conversations, and I'm honored to be sitting here at MOG, just off camera in the galleries with Sarah Gilbert, who has graciously agreed to share her story and the work featured in the exhibition live in the gallery next to her work. Transparency is the nation's first exhibit of studio glass works produced exclusively by artists of the LGBTQ community. The exhibition was organized by the National Liberty Museum in Philadelphia. And on behalf of all of us at Museum of Glass, we feel so fortunate to showcase this exhibition of work on the West Coast. A big thanks to all the artists who have so generously shared their work and their stories with us over the past couple of months. And a huge shout out to Megan Cole and everyone at the Liberty for their support throughout the exhibition. But on to the main event. Sarah is originally from Rochester, New York, and is an alum of RIT. She has been working here at the Museum of Glass since 2006 on our Hot Shop team. And I'm really excited to be here to talk to her outside of her natural habitat and standing next to her own work. So welcome, Sarah. Thank you so much for being here. And I'd love to start off by having you tell us a little bit more about your work and signs and signifiers.
Thank you, and thanks for having me. I'm so psyched to be here, and honored to be in the show. Yeah, big shout out to everyone and involved in putting all this together. This work is kind of an ongoing body of work for me. I started it in 2015, and I had to look at the tag for that. The idea is kind of that it's this growing collection, almost like a wall of family photos. So I was really looking at the hand as more of like a portrait of each individual without just engraving their faces. We understand so much of our daily lives and growing through life by using our hands and experiencing the world that way. So our hands really do end up being a bit of a portrait in that way. I've tried to, along those lines, really include people that are both, you know, brand new babies up to 80 plus. And so I've taken a photo of their hands. Everybody that's on this wall currently is somebody that I know that I've either actually taken the photograph of their hand or, had them send me a photograph. And that's really what I work off of when I'm engraving. So I have them send me a picture of their hand, or I take it, and then the imagery that's inside of each of those circles is meant to be something that we use to give direction or guide us through life. And all of those photos are also kind of relative to the age of the person whose hand it is. So the baby has like a baby bottle or a kid's toy. And then as you get older, they're kind of more concrete tools or objects like a compass or a weather vane or a metronome. Um, so, yeah, that's the piece.
That's amazing. And are you choosing those totems in conversation with the person, or is it something that, like, how do those symbols
Yeah, that's a good question.
become connected?
Some of them are definitely tied to the person. This one on the bottom is a lammy. That's the stuffed. You know, you're a new
Yeah,
mom.
I am.
That was specific to that person, or that one with the kid's toy next to the metronome. That was like from a photo. I asked that parent, what does this kid love? Is there some toy that they really love? The book is actually somebody that loves to read. And then some of the other ones, like those top two are they're my parents.
Oh,
I was
We're
gonna
getting
try and
there.
be kind of
no, I'm going
vague
there.
about it, but so it's like I kind of picked those, but it's like the Big Dipper and the phases of the moon. They're kind of like the phases of the moon was kind of referencing my dad. Was always into like space and things like that, and they're like big indicators that everybody uses in the world that they've used from day one. It's kind of reflective of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, totally. And I, since we're naming people, I'm just going to jump right in. As we were installing the piece with Sarah back, almost 2 years ago now, thanks to the closure, we, it's a cool moment from the curatorial side of things because there's this passing of the baton. Artists all view these pieces as your family, and especially in this one. So I know that some of them are specific people, which is why I want to ask you about them. Are there for the hands that are obviously younger?
Yeah.
Does their meaning change as you watch those kids grow up? I mean, it's been 5 years since you started them, right?
Yeah, that's such a good question. I think they have stayed the same. I mean, in a way, it's kind of a little time capsule or a remembrance of that moment in their life.
Yeah.
The book is actually Posey May's hand. That's
Aww.
Ben Cobb's daughter, and she's still like a avid reader. That has not changed in her life. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
And I know there are a couple of glass artists.
Yeah,
up
there's
there
a couple.
too.
So yeah, I can just let's see. The one in the middle below my parents is actually Lino. The one with the lighthouse is Nancy Callan. The one with the two magnets is actually Antoine Perini's father, who is a French glassmaker, and we've really connected. He's from Biot, and it's Tacoma's sister city. And through the years, we've really created a bond between the two places. And Antoine's such an amazing glass artist himself. Let's see. The one with the compass is actually my great grandma. She's no longer with us, but yeah.
And is it? I love the connection between portrait. Like it is a portrait. They all are portraits, and I love that idea that your hand is as distinguishing to you as your face. Is there a reason you go for, just out of curiosity, for the back of the hand as opposed to the front?
Yeah, I've had that question a few times because, the front is really what you're touching or what gets the calluses and the whatever. I don't have a good answer for that other than visually it just read better for me.
I
didn't want it to look like it was holding something.
Right. No, I think it's really interesting once you there's this whole history of portraiture and how people face when they have their portrait painted. So I was wondering if you have and you do the
That's
same
a good answer, Katie.
level of nuance. So the other reason I'm totally jazzed to be here is because we see Sarah every day live on our Hot Shop live feed. And it's the view that you have of the hot shop totally cuts out your entire artistic process. Not a lot of people know that we have just as big of a cold shop in the building as we do a hot shop. It's just behind all of the furnaces where viewers can't see it. And I'm really excited for everybody watching because Sarah brought us some samples and was going to talk a little bit about cameo engraving since it's not something that we get to see every day.
I always kind of I don't know if joking is the right word, but I do not think of myself as a cold worker, even though I am using that space. And
Are cold working and engraving different though for everybody
Well,
that's not a
engraving is
glass
kind of a
nerd?
process within cold working. I am cold working, and I guess there is totally an aspect to my process that is absolutely cold working. But I have such respect for like Kristen Elliott, our cold worker, or the people that do it for a living and like erase our mistakes that we make in the hot shop. I almost don't want to even like put myself. Um, it's me being a little ridiculous, maybe, because I am absolutely using those tools. I'm just kind of using them maybe in a different way than how they approach. But these hands start with just a fused sheet. So it's just a sheet with white glass and black glass fused together. And so I fuse those together, and then I cut out kind of the rough silhouette of what it is, and then start slowly removing that white material. And the more white material I remove, the darker the shading gets. So this is actually one that I messed up because I took kind of too much away. I thought it doesn't look so bad now, but
And are you doing this over weeks, days, months, years?
yeah, I mean, I'm getting faster the more I do it. Definitely getting a process down, but yeah, it takes a long time.
And do you tend to work one hand start to finish, or
No, I kind of like to. I'll have like three or four at different stages, because it does take so much time.
yeah?
I like to, you get kind of like worn out on one thing.
Yeah, totally.
So yeah, I'm using, this is one of the wheels that I have for my lathe. I have a lathe at home that I got from the Czech that is an old engraving lathe. I love it. It's this beautiful piece of equipment. It's been a labor of love. It showed up, I had to like find a motor, build a table, and through doing all of that stuff, kind of learn how to build it for me. I'm not like someone that's built as an average size, so I really tried to consider all of that when building it for myself. So yeah,
Yeah, what is that you have in your hand?
this is a spindle with a diamond embedded wheel on it. So they make these with different profiles. This is like a strap wheel. I use this a lot for these hands. I also have this small V wheel.
Cool.
You can get these made in just about any size profile. And then there's also, just like you would for sanding wood or polishing metal or whatever, you have a range of like a super rough grit to a super fine grit. So this one's pretty rough. It obviously removes material faster than something like this that is much smoother.
And so just to give people a visual, when you're doing this, it's spinning really fast and you're holding it, right?
Right. So on my lathe, it's different than like a wood lathe or a metal lathe in that the machine is doing the spinning and I'm holding the piece of glass to the wheel as opposed to the glass spinning and me carving away at it.
Which, just so everybody knows, is completely crazy. It's bonkers because to have the vision of what you want the piece to look at and to be keeping track of how much white you're removing must be really complicated.
Yeah, well, go slow, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Where did you learn to engrave? Did you learn at RIT?
No, I didn't. I have had a pretty goofy path of finding my way through glass. I really got pretty into the blowing side of things. It's fast, it's loud, it's hot, it's physical. I love how physical it is. I love that I'm like exhausted at the end of the day. And so I got really into that. And but before I got into glass blowing, I was into animation. I thought I was gonna
Wow.
that's what I was gonna do with my life, and so I've always been into drawing and kind of narrative ideas, trying to tell a story through imagery. And so, you know, I got into glass blowing, but then it was always this struggle to find how to get imagery, or like this idea of how I knew to tell a story, how to get it into my blown glass. This is not blown glass. I do have cameo engraving that I've done on blown objects, and I'm trying more and more to kind of incorporate the two processes. But honestly, I got a Halberg Fellowship at Pilchuck with April Surgeon, Pavlina Tombolova, Yara Shara, Charlie Perriott, and Cappy Thompson. And that was like a huge opportunity to learn from those
Wow.
people. But before that, April Surgeon had been a visiting artist here, and she gave this talk. She gave a slide talk at the end of her residency, just like everybody does. And she said, you know, if anybody's interested in how to do this, come and talk to me after. And I was like, April, tell me.
Cool.
And she was like, you should probably just get like a Fordham and see if it's something that you like before you really like invest all this time and money into doing it, you know. And at the time I was like really let down by that answer, because I just wanted this like magic, like buy this, this, and this, and you'll figure it out. And that was really the best answer she could have given, because through figuring that process out and sourcing equipment and learning all of that, I've learned so much more, and like, you know, learn that I am like dedicated to the process of doing it. So
That's amazing. How and why, this is a really big question that I'm sure you could give a whole talk on, but why glass? If you can draw and you can take a beautiful photo of a hand, what took you from those two things that you're good at to glass and learning a new thing?
That's a really good question. One of the parts of the answer, I think, would be the history of cameo engraving and how it was used before photography to capture a likeness or an important event or an important person, and kind of traded down or passed down through the family. There's also something that I find really endearing to like the process of sitting with an object for that long, and really kind of like spending that much time with it, and translating that image into such a permanent thing.
Does it change your relationship with the person to work on their hand for that long?
The fact that I'm like staring at their hand for hours. I mean, I guess so. In some way, this collection of people are all really important to me, and I have a list of other people I want to add to it. So I guess I would have to say yes.
Yeah.
But you know,
that's fair.
I don't know.
And I have a few more questions, and for everybody that's listening at the end, we're going to be asking Sarah your questions, so don't forget to post them in the comments below the live feed. But related to that, is there anybody in the world whose hands you'd like to add, just as a fun aside?
Oh man, I wish I would have known you were going to answer that.
Sorry, I just thought of it.
There's this really famous rock climber that lost his thumb.
Not the 127 hours guy. Different, who chopped off his arm.
No. Different guy. I'm totally spacing on his name.
We'll come back to
this incredible climber, though. But really, rock climbers in general. I want to do my nephew's or my cousin's hand, who was a professional fisherman too. He's got these amazing gnarly hands. Yeah, I don't know.
That's awesome. The other question I had related to this piece, to bring it back to the show, is what was it like working with the Liberty and having to think about your work in the larger context of who you are as artist and LGBTQ person and that
Yeah.
introspective process.
Yeah. I was really honored when they asked me to be a part of the show. The group of artists, like in and of themselves, are amazing makers. So forget the LGBTQ part. They're just kind of amazing artists. So that was awesome. I've like the older I get, the first, I don't know how to start this part of what I want to say, but I've never wanted to be like an amazing or a good glass artist for a woman or for a queer person. So I've always kind of looked at it, or I've just tried not to talk about it, thinking like if I don't talk about it, then it's not.
You'll just be a good artist,
right?
Period.
Then people will just. Not talking about it though doesn't make it go away, and it doesn't make it not part of who I am. So kind of the older I get, the more I realize like naming it almost destigmatizes it in a way. So yeah, I'm like out and proud, happy to be a part of the show. And we all do have this common experience in life, realizing that aspect of who we are, and it does kind of tint the lens of like how you experience the world. So it's cool to be a part of that group and recognized in that way.
Yeah, and I thank you for saying that, because it's, on the museum end of things, it's so exciting to have a group of people to share those voices.
Yeah.
And just to have the show be about what the artist has to say, instead of being the Lorax.
When they did ask me to be a part of it, it's not like they said, can you make a piece about being a queer glass artist? They were like, can you put your work in the show, which is the proper way to put the show together.
And it's been interesting over the series of conversations to like have different people engage with it on a different level of their making practice. But ultimately, Walter Zimmerman last week had a great point, which is that it's impossible to make a piece of art without leaving a little bit of yourself.
It's so true.
So
I love Walter.
who doesn't? Hi, Walter.
I'm so happy he's in the show, and
and I think it's been great to have a place for the second summer to celebrate Pride. It was so disappointing to be closed.
I know.
So for everybody that's watching, the other thing to throw out there is that we are open. Museum of Glass is open all summer. Thursdays
come visit us
through Sundays. So if you're in the area, we'd love to see you. And we have a whole host of questions popping in, so I'm gonna just take a break. First of all, Tim Tate sends his fond hello and support. So hi, Tim. If you're still listening, we love that you're out there, and thank you for your voice in the show too. Our fabulous education program manager, Jabari, has a question.
Okay.
And Jabari asks, how is it working with other artists in the hot shop? How has working with other artists in the hot shop influenced your work, given that it's so personal to you?
Yeah, that's a good question. Working with other artists in the hot shop is like the best part of my job. Getting to work with them, understand their ideas, and kind of interpret all of that into glass. It's really an incredible experience. I would say the biggest thing is, and I meant to reference that earlier, the biggest thing is like you see so many different techniques and you work with so many different people. It's hard to figure out your vision and what you want to make and like what that looks like. It's like every week you're like, oh my God, I want to try this thing, or I want to try this thing, or we just did that for 5 days. I want to like put it in my work, or like, and not obviously a copy, but like there's some aspect of that process or technique that you're like, oh man, I could totally see that working into what I'm making or whatever. And so really like finding your own voice and committing to your own process
Must
is
be
really
really
difficult.
really challenging.
Staying focused.
But
is
on
hard.
the other hand, is the one of the reasons I love watching glass happen in general is just you can't do it by yourself. So there's just such an easy, I think where you imagine Jackson Pollock feeling angsty alone in his studio. There's this because you rely on each other to do anything. There is this amazing, come check out what I'm doing. Do you want to give it a try? Collaborative thing that I don't think many other art mediums get to do.
That's so
way.
true. Yeah. And definitely one of my favorite. I mean, I love that I'm working in the hot shop with a bunch of people, and then I get to like go home and sit with this work for a while in my own space, and in my own head, and really kind of meditate on it.
I can see where the difference between sitting in our chaotic hot shop with visitors and an MC is completely opposite of how you're working at home. That makes total sense to me.
Two very different spaces, and I love the kind of I love that they're opposite spaces, and I can exist in both.
Yeah. Another question that's floating out there is one I wanted to ask for folks that are tuning in from outside of the Northwest. MOG was closed. Museum of Glass was closed from pretty much March 2020 to March 2021 because of our COVID restrictions here. How do you make work when you don't have access to a hot shop? How did you spend your pandemic lockdown?
I feel super lucky. I have a little studio in the basement of my house, but I have to say the lockdown happened, and I kind of split it into two halves almost in my head, where the first half of COVID, I wanted nothing to do with my studio, which is probably the first time in the longest amount of time I had never gone in there. I don't know what it was, if it was like the uncertainty of what was going on, or and normally I understand so much of the world through making, or use making as a way of communicating. So normally, like, I was surprised that I didn't want to just go in there and like make a bunch of things, but I just didn't. I worked on my house. I built out the back of my truck to go camping. I hung out with my dog. I did everything that would keep me away from that studio space. And then actually had a conversation with a good friend of mine, and my partner had bought me this book that's called The Practice, I think. And it was really just about practicing the practice. And man, that like lit a fire in me. Awesome. And kind of made me just unearth the dust and start being in the space. And how I approached it really was, I do have some parts and pieces that I've made, so I had those to work on, but I also have always wanted to learn about like wood bending.
Awesome.
And that whole process. And I've always put it off, saying I didn't have enough time, and that was like all I had. So I kind of lost that excuse. So I just kind of started dipping my toe into it, and now I'm like totally obsessed with wood bending.
So will your work change coming out of pandemic, do you think?
Yeah, so it might not be a huge shift, but I'm now trying to incorporate that, essentially using it as frames for things, but now I can kind of make weird glass shapes and frame them with this bent wood. It's not like going to be some. I'm not going to quit glass blowing and turn into a woodworker, but it was a great way to like learn something, approach a different material, yet still understand the process of figuring it out, because I could kind of translate it through my understanding of glass. So it was. I'm still learning. It's such a learning curve, but I'm enjoying it. That's kind of how I approached COVID, along with, the rest of the world trying to figure out how to navigate it. It still is. Feels so crazy.
Totally. And thanks to Serena out there on Facebook, we have a related question. She wants to know where you see your work going. Do you think you'll stay in Cameo or move toward more sculptures or vessels?
Yes. I am trying to do some more blown work. There's something I do love about the look of Cameo engraving. There's also intaglio engraving.
What's the difference?
You don't have the same layers of. I'm probably gonna if a real engraver's out there listening, they're gonna correct me.
You are a real engraver.
The approach to image making is different. In the most basic description, the approach to image making is different. Where Cameo, your closest part of your image is, the most white or the most kind of opaque. You're literally engraving it as like my hand. I'm gonna make that the darkest part, the part that's the farthest away. Intaglio engraving, you're kind of cutting that image into the sheet glass and you're looking at it from the other side, and so it's kind of a different way to approach even cutting the imagery in there. So I don't know if that makes any sense.
It totally makes sense.
I'm gonna try and I've been trying to push myself kind of more into that. It lends itself to using the transparency of blown glass and things like that. So I'm interested in learning that as well.
And when you're working in the hot shop, do you make specific blanks for specific visions, or do you tend to make a bunch of different shapes and then let which comes first, the blank or the design?
Yeah. I would say the design for me usually does come first. It's difficult though because it is such an extended process. I don't always have the exact imagery figured out, so it is kind of trying to think of basic forms and keeping it basic that can be used in different ways.
I imagine there's some economy about trying to utilize a residency or time in the hot shop to its fullest extent.
There's also a size limit for me.
Oh, really?
Like being able to hold a blown object up to a lathe for hours at a time is so hard on your body, using different muscles than we use in the hot shop. So I think I've kind of maxed out where I can go with that with some of the blown cylinders that I've made and things. But I'm figuring it out.
That's amazing. And are you working toward a show? If folks are out there other than Museum of Glass, where can they go to see more of your work?
Yeah, I have a show, or I don't have a show. I'm in a group show up at the Watco Museum.
Oh, that's right. Fluid Formations.
Fluid Formations, yeah. Very cool show. And I also have work going into Bellwether, which is going to happen. The show that I'm in is going to be at the Bellevue Arts Museum.
Oh, that's
it's
amazing.
Another group show, and there's going to be neon involved.
Cool.
Yeah. So I'm very excited about that.
That's awesome. Are you making those pieces still, or are they finished and ready to go?
I am. I'm going to have some of the wood bending in there.
Cool.
Yep.
Is that a fall? That's a fall winter show, right?
It goes. The install is August, the end of August. It's right around the corner.
Oh, right around the corner. So that's for everybody that wants to see that. It's bellevuearts.org is their website, and Whatcom Museum as well up in Bellingham. I'm just checking to see if there are any last comments. Is there anything we didn't cover that you want to put out there? No,
I don't think so.
This is awesome. Thanks for everybody for tuning in. Thank you, Sarah, for sharing your work with us and letting us hang on to it for the extra year
Oh yeah.
that it gets to be
No
here.
problem.
If you guys are able to visit Tacoma out there on Facebook Live, the exhibition will be open here through Labor Day weekend. So we're really honored to have Sarah here, and thank you for tuning in.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you guys.